Hey, this is Zac.
And I'm Clint, and we wanted to thank Exoterra for sponsoring this episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Exoterra is the industry leader in glass terrarium enclosures, and we are a big fan of getting to see the species we work with both at home and at the university.
We utilize Exoterra caging here at Metazotics, and in addition to top quality terrariums, Exoterra offers an array of heating options, lighting, supplements, decor, and truthfully anything needed or wanted when keeping reptiles.
Thank you, Exoterra, for supporting Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. As always, Zac here with the one and only Clint Bartley. How are you doing, sir?
Hello. I'm doing great. There's been a lot going on over here, so
yeah,
fun stuff. How about you, man?
I am doing well because the semester is now done. So instead of having to wear 35 hats in the day, I only have to wear a couple for the next 3 months, which is pretty wonderful. And the other thing that obviously happens once school year ends is that the field season begins. So I have students I've got students right now in southwestern Virginia doing crayfish telemetry. The Iowa crew, half of them are out there. The other half shows up on Thursday. And they're doing all kinds of good stuff. I'll give a little update here in a minute with them. Then I go out on Friday. So that's going to be good. This is a rocket run. I'm only out there through Monday, but no, good things are happening. End of the semester was brutal, but it's done. That's what matters. So yeah, that's the big update, life update with me. And then the collection is it just sucks that field season and me traveling perfectly lines up with all these female snakes dropping all these damn eggs. And it's like they wait me out. They're like, oh, I must give off some pheromone or some crap. And they're like, I'll lay in 24 hours because he will be gone. But then how the hell do I get him to the incubator? So the deal is back in play with Colin. $20 for every clutch he gets to the incubator. But this year it changed because now he knows what he's doing. So he will lose $20 for every clutch he doesn't get to the incubator. So now I have incentivized the checking of the egg boxes. So anyway, we'll see how this ultimately shakes down.
I like it.
But yeah, the Florida King, all my locale Florida Kings are dropping right now. So that's good. My hogs, our hogs, I should say, they are in nest boxes. They look miserable. About 2/3 of them have done their pre-lay sheds. So they're ready to go. And we have morphs coming. I've never done the morph thing in my life, but I have lemon ghost times sables, lemon ghosts. I'm looking at them right now. A bunch of albinos that don't have googly eyes. That's a problem with albino hogs, and then some high red animals. So I don't know. There's 60 to 100 eggs coming our way.
Sweet.
But and damn it, I don't have the picture. Today was a big day, and I'll wrap with this. So a lot of the listeners know that we opened the Appalachian Aquatic Conservation Center in October. Cool. And soon we will be talking about a joint effort between that and our conservation corps when it comes to snake conservation. But I've been talking about the spotted turtles since the beginning. And turtles retain sperm, and they do really dumb crap that snakes don't do, like lay eggs in the middle of winter. And I said, just throw them all into the incubator. So we have about 25 eggs. And today, we started this summer today, like we call it the ACK. The ACK crew were getting their tour with Tanya, our curator, and they checked the incubator and they saw that the eggshells were in 1 million pieces. And so we now have baby spotted turtles.
So that's great.
We have our and it's pretty crazy because normally when you look in an egg tub, you're thinking like, well, who's that going to end up with? But these things are going to end up like out in a marsh. in either Ohio or West Virginia, which is kind of really trippy to think about. And they are so flipping small. Little baby snakes don't really intimidate me. These things intimidated me. They're about the size of a nickel. And I was like, oh, I was really hoping you would be about twice that size. So anyway, but they all hadn't hatched, so they're still in the egg box in the incubator, and hopefully tomorrow the other 2 eggs was a clutch of 5. So 3 are out, 2 should be pipping or coming out in the next 24 hours. So that was a really big deal for all of us at school because we put so much time and effort into those turtles. And when we got the turtles, these were turtles that were they were confiscated at JFK Airport on their way to Asia. And then they were given to a rehabber, and the rehabber basically put all the turtles into one pond, and it was over 100 of them. So when we got them, some were okay, most were not. And so we've been like recouping them and trying to get them back to where they, can survive. A lot of them have, not a lot, but we lost about half a dozen, which was not the best thing in the world for the students that were involved. But hey, when you work with life, you deal with that. So tell it to them all the time. It doesn't have anything to do with snakes, but it's herps. So the turtles today, that was a great way to start the summer.
Cool. Absolutely. That's great, man. Congratulations.
Yep. Thanks.
Really neat. Well, I'll tell you what, it was, we've kind of had a lot that's come to a head. Like, I mean, the things I'm about to share have been kind of being worked on for quite some time out here. First, let's I guess I'll talk about just what's going on in the collection. So we started to have the eggs drop. The Colubrid eggs are coming. We've got some, we've had a few green bush clutches drop. One looks great. One was bad. One clutch was laid today that's iffy. We're going to see what happens. So, but again, every year we hatch green bush. So I just want to keep that consistency. Yeah. It was just a couple days ago, Corey comes up to me and says, I just marked 12 Alterna Gravid. I'm like, yeah. So that makes me happy. Now, I have a little fear. Our Southwest room has been running hot this year. And it's like, first I'm like, okay, we got the thermostats set incorrectly. And then we lowered that. Well, even after that, it's still running hotter than where, they're cut off. And I figured out what it is now. It's the lights that we're using are putting off a lot. The fixtures are putting off a lot more heat than what I anticipated with them just being fluorescents or, these. So we've made some adjustments there, but it's been running like mid 80s in the room. And I'm just, I hope it's not affected sperm or, what I mean? Anything through that. So like, come on. So we'll see what's going on there, but no alternate eggs on the ground yet, but a lot of fatties. So, we definitely have that. And there's really through every room I've been walking through and seeing all the gravid, signs, but we've got several of the bamboos have laid. We've seen action out of the Chinese king rats this year, and we hadn't seen action in the past couple. So definitely lots of movement there. Again, more and more ball pythons keep being laid. Green-keeled lizards. We'd hatched out another. We hatched out another red-eyed crocodile skink. Just a lot of different things, that are going on. So it's definitely the season is kicked, and it's happening. So it's exciting, that never gets old, So that's really cool. Then there's some building things that have now finally happened. So I've talked about getting the building painted. That's been completed. Looks so much better. I mean, it's night and day difference out there. So that's great. Right now we have awnings that are in the progress of being made and it's process of being made. And those are, be brand new. And so we have the logo on it, all that. That's just going to make the building pop even more. And I just approved today a design for our new signage because as previously and as of right now, the only signs on the Metazotics building they're a wooden sign, but they're really nice. I mean, it's like the CNC machine is cut out, you know, inside the wood, and it's been painted. And so it, you know, it stands out. But now this is going to be a large sign that is on the roof of the building, lit up. You know, it's all, and it's going to be massive. And so, you know, feel legitimized now, you know, with the building. So, you know, a lot of just really good things like that going forward. And so that's more of, you know, our external. However, we have some major internal changes that have just kicked off as of today. So, Wendy and I had discussed, I mean, we're always discussing the future, the plans, you know, laying out the dominoes, so to speak. And, you know, if we go this way, if we go that way. Well, a big piece of this was us looking at personnel and what kind of things we wanted to do with different individuals as far as development, to open up, one, so that we could become more streamlined in the different processes that we have, but also what could open me up to be able to focus on company growth and not, you know, so many of the little things that could probably teach someone else. But, you know, we're kind of we had a good plan in place, and we're figuring out when we could pull the trigger on this or make these changes happen. But then in April, I had a conversation that kind of sparked where, okay, we actually are going to move this faster. You know, we now have a timeline. And that was because in April, I had a conversation with Anna, who, you know, those who are listeners or those who have come into the shop know Anna is our floor leader in Chandler and has been with us actually from the start, like the first employee hired, and has been absolutely phenomenal as far as she's been a pillar of making Metazotics what Metazotics is. Well, Anna came in and talked to me about wanting to go back to school. You know, she wants to go back and finish her biology degree. And she, you know, signed up for it. And, you know, I'm so proud of her for doing that. Very happy. So with that in mind, Anna will be leaving us in July. However, she's going not only for the biology degree, but to get into conservation and research. Yeah. And you know how dear that is to our hearts. And we've actually already been working out research projects for her to be able to do, because she has to have these for school, and she's going to be able to do research projects here at Metazotics, you know, to help help get her the credits that she needs. So, you know, that really, as I told her, I said, I don't think our paths are done crossing, you know, as far as when she graduates. So very happy for Anna. Very sad to see her, step, you know, kind of take that step outside of Metazotics. But I love that she's still going to be in the realm, you know, so to speak. With Anna stepping, you know, out in July, we've made a lot of now adjustments, and we just put several of these clicked in today. The big one is Ox. You know, you guys know Ox. Ox started in the nursery, then took the general manager position of our Henderson location. Well, Ox is now coming back to Chandler to become the general manager of Chandler. Oh, nice. And that means not only the retail floor, but he oversees everything over here now. And he'll be here with me and with Wendy's to be able to learn a lot more of this. But, you know, it's kind of the next step in Ox's development, and, you know, more things that I can kind of take off my plate to look towards future growth. So congratulations, Ox, I think. Yeah, we'll see if you still feel it's a congratulations after today. We were joking because like I heard Landon, who I'm going to mention again in a minute, Ox is helping a customer, and I hear him say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize something." And you hear Landon go, "It's his first day." You know, just couldn't help but laugh. So, but you know, that's going to be important, and I think it's you know, really a step in the right direction for us. So, very, very happy to have Ox, you know, over here, and I think it's going to be a very positive, you know, movement for us going forward. Well, with Ox stepping out of Henderson, we have now promoted Danielle to the general manager position of Henderson. Danielle has been over in Henderson since it opened. She's been right there with Ox, learning along the way, doing shows, and definitely has shown her ability to take over that position. And she's been fantastic. So it was a no-brainer, to be able, like, we had planned this all along, that at some point she'd be taking that store, and as of today, it's hers. So
Nice.
Congratulations to Danielle. Landon, who has been kind of the he's been a go-to person for me, obviously, here for quite some time. He's the administrative coordinator, and he's now taking on 2 new roles. One, Landon has been operating our social media. He oversees every bit of that now and is doing fantastic with it. And he's also now been promoted to floor leader. So he will be training for the next couple months in that role, and will be continuing to deliver in that realm. So very, very happy with Landon, because he's definitely, when I say he's a go-to person, I apologize to him a lot, because I'm like, hey, I know I've already thrown 3 more things on you today, but here's one more. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But he's very fast paced, and he gets out there and gets things done. So, and then finally, I know I've mentioned both of these before, and the changes that we've already made with them, but there's actually more. So Corey and Kaylee, these are the 2 individuals who oversee all the animals at this point. Corey takes care of the collection. She's the curator over everything. And then you've got Kaylee, who takes care of the nursery, all of the babies. And they've actually layered on some more things that help me. So now Corey is taking care of all of the morph market inquiries. She's answering all those questions. She's taking care of all of that. If she needs assistance, obviously she reaches out to me, but she's handling that. She's also handling all of the live animal shipments. She is the one who's now determining what do they need: a heat pack, gel pack, ice pack, nothing. She's looks at all of that, makes that call. She's taking care of the labeling. She's taking care of all of it. I've not had to really touch it, other than an occasional when she's not sure about a temperature, what should she do here? And again, she's doing great. And I mean, that alone takes a significant part of my Monday, off that I had before. So, it's huge. She's also the one that determines when we need more animals. It's sometimes I'm apologizing to her. Hey, I just bought all these. They're coming tomorrow. But she's the one who lets me know when we need more of this species or that. And she handles it. And then Kaylee, you're going to like this, because I've talked about this before. So Kaylee, obviously she's taking the nursery, she is taking care of all the problem feeders. She's also now one of our show specialists, because she's, doing fantastic going to the shows, but she's also now doing all of the pictures.
Oh,
so, yes. All of the animal pictures. And she loves it. Exactly. She's doing great with it. If anything, I walk in and I see, I just loaded 40 animals yesterday, Kaylee, and you've got another 60 that you just took. God. So I'm, doing all that part of loading all these animals that she's getting all these pictures on, but it's definitely keeping us, on top of our game and ensuring that anything that's available is getting put out there in a timely manner. So I just want to, say thank you to every one of you that I just named. Congratulations to every one of you as well. You're doing fantastic. And I want to give a special shout out to Wendy, because, she's been my partner right there through all these decisions. Her and I sitting down and mapping out what responsibilities are going to who, what this is going to look like as we continue to move forward. So sorry for all of the rambling, but this was a big, exciting piece for us. And it's big of a Metazotics update is what I think I could give. Is that right there?
You've been talking about this behind the scenes for a little while, so kind of cool to hear.
Yep. Today was day one. So, we were really happy about it.
Excellent. Well, congrats to everybody at Metazotics. I'll say that. They've earned this,
Oh, they absolutely. And it's funny, because that's one of the things I talk about whenever someone is put in a leadership position. I often, I kind of catch them off guard when I ask them if they felt like they earned this, and they tell me yes, and I go, no, you didn't. And I'm like, and my point when I say that is, a leadership role isn't necessarily from hard work. You're put in a leadership role because of a skill set that's been identified in you. And so it's different. You can be a hard worker, but not a leader. And each one of these individuals have been put in the roles they are because of the skill sets that they have shown. So I tell them it's not a reward. You know, I've handed all of them a responsibility, but I can tell you each one of them are doing fantastic with responsibilities handed to them. So very proud of you all.
Excellent. All right. Do you want to do a market update?
Why don't you do science? Because I got the big market update in a second. So.
Okay. Well, the science update tonight is we're talking about Colubridfest. So last time.
And who's it brought to us by?
Oh, thank you very much. It's brought to us by our good. Oh gosh, my brain. It's brought to us by our good friends at RGI. So Rare Genetics Inc. I don't know why my brain shut down on that one, but maybe it's because it's been going nonstop for the past 10 weeks. Obviously, use the code CCR15, get yourself a discount. They just made an announcement in the past 48 hours about identifying, I think it's the albino hognose gene or something to that effect. So by all means, they're get those shed skins to them, Colubrid and Colubroid land, because they're doing good things that are going to help us out. So with that being said, I want to talk about Colubridfest tonight, and I'm going to try to do this quickly because Clint has the big update and we're running out of time here. But as of right now, I have every talk lined up with the exception of one. And I am not going to announce that. We'll talk about it later. And then I have another talk I will officially announce once I get official word from the guy, because I don't want to make an announcement and find out he doesn't want to do it, even though Clint and I are convinced he does, because we talked about it. So the kind of sub theme for Colubridfest this year is based entirely off of the feedback we got during Colubridfest last year. So on Saturday, I was running around, Clint was running around, Max was running around. We all were running around whenever we had a break, and just saying, do you like the talks? Do you not like the talks? What do you wish you were hearing? What are you not hearing that you want to hear? And there were two themes that popped up that were kind of ever present. One was feeding, alternative feeders, kind of growth. That was something that I kept hearing over and over and over again. And then the other one, which was really weird, is we normally have kind of a human dimensions. That's what Clint and I call it anyway. Series of talks where we kind of want everybody in the room to get jazzed up. So you're excited. And we kind of ask this question, why do we do what we do? And then what about herpetoculture besides snakes are you most interested in? Because I think it's important that we identify the whole community that we're part of and how important that community is. And this year, based off one of the conversations we were having last year, there might be a negative connotation to it, but I don't think there is. But we're going to actually have a couple talks on burnout, because that was the thing that I heard the most about is like, I don't know, once a year I get to this point where I like question everything. And then I kind of, I get back into it, but I don't want to necessarily get to that point again. And so I thought, give them what they want. So burnout is the other thing that we're going to be talking about. So for the feeding piece, it's no secret that if you listen to the show, I'm always jabber-jawing about the growth we're seeing in Iowa, and then what are we seeing here? So I'm giving a talk at IHS on this using data from the field, and I started thinking, for the love of God, if there's anywhere we should recycle but update that talk, it's Colubridfest, because Colubridfest is quite literally funding Iowa. So this is kind of bringing it all full circle. So I'm going to be giving a talk on basically feeding and growth rates, comparing what we see in nature to what we see in human care, because I have data, because we take mass and length on a lot of things at the school. So I just want to kind of compare and contrast. And then the idea behind that is putting out a preferred, how often and how big should we be feeding these animals? Because we oftentimes hear like low and slow pretty popular. And then don't power feed. But like, I'm not certain you can power feed a baby colubrid at this point in the game. So that's going to be one of the talks and discussions is feeding rate, feeding frequency, what's good, what's bad. Is the perceived bad really bad, or we're, doing our whole science thing. Then we're going to roll into a roundtable, and I am pumped about a roundtable this year. We did one of these last year. It worked out well. We did one the first year. This year it's on alternative feeders because that was a talk people wanted us to have. So I thought rather than have one person talk about it, let's have 3 people talk about it. And the 3 people we have talking about it are Jason Nelson from MV Reptiles. So we got our Pichophis represented. We have Chris Montross from Dark Horse. We have Nerodia, rat snakes, and we all know Chris thinks outside the box on a lot of things. And then a colubrid keeper, not a python keeper, Owen from MPR is coming to Colubridfest. So is Eric. And Owen is going to be on that roundtable. So we're going to have Owen McIntyre up there. And we all know Owen does most of his snake feeding shopping at freaking the grocery store and not with rats. Like when you listen to him, I couldn't think of a better person, and we basically forced him into coming. So there you go. And then he was like, I want to come after that. I talked to Dr. Whitman today. Whitman is doing the veterinarian talk. We're going to, we threw a couple ideas out there. One thing with the feeding theme is obesity. Is it as prevalent as we think it is? Is there a certain age when it shows up? How do you get rid of it? I mean, I know that I bought some snakes that were not as pictured in Morph Market and were beyond. I mean, these things had hips. I was like, how do I fix this? So we're going to, do that discussion. And then getting to the human dimensions piece, we have Shira Loa. I hope I didn't butcher that name. She does a lot of snake. She has a channel on YouTube where she talks about the use of snakes in psychology, the use in snakes with, people that have that are neurodivergent and how snakes can actually help them with communication. Her stuff's really cool.
It's really neat ideas. Yeah.
She reached out to us. We met her at, you met her at Pomona. She tried to get to me, but I was talking to somebody else. But anyway, so she's coming all the way from California to Evansville to give a talk on that. And then that is where we're going to bring in the burnout piece about like the psychology of burnout. Well, how do we get here? What about us makes this happen the way it does? And then the last talk is someone who listens to our show, and Clint and I are massive fans of this guy. Dr. Billy Svin is from Creepers Herpetoculture. He does this really awesome presentation on why the minimum matters and that we should elevate our minimum. And I feel like him talking about that after a burnout conversation is going to bring that whole thing full circle. Mm-hmm. And so we have Billy coming down from Minnesota to give a talk on the minimum. And right now, some of you might be like, what? Go to his Animals at Home podcast and watch it. It's amazing stuff. So,
well, even when he was on our show, I mean, he was so well received. And that was on ethics, wasn't it? Is that what we were talking about with Billy then? Yeah. I mean, I love the way Billy's brain works. I mean, it's
yes, we do.
Very good stuff.
And Billy and I are talking about if I can ever get calmed down and get a free second writing a paper together about the ecology piece and then his minimum stuff from 2 different perspectives. So that's the lineup now. I still need to talk to a few people about some other things with Colubridfest, which I'm just going to leave at that. And I can now do that now that the semester's over. But that's your update on Colubridfest. It's going to be a little bit epic. I am not that I wasn't excited about the last one, but this one, we have 2 under our belt now. So now I feel like I really have an understanding of what seems to work, what seems to vibe, what talks got the best result and most engagement last year. So once this is formalized, I'm going to release titles, but get your tickets. I think we're out of hotel rooms.
I think that block has been wiped out. We make a note to myself here to follow up with Mickey on seeing if we can get more. But as I said, when it comes to Evansville, even if you're not able to get into that hotel, it's not going to be a problem getting something. It'll just be about a 10-15 minute drive down there. I will say I just received a message from Mickey about 7 minutes ago that said, so I was checking in about the awards. Max had asked about the awards, and he said he was planning on rolling that out probably in about 2 weeks, basically June. In June is when the award nominations and voting and all that is going to start hitting, so that we've got plenty of time going into September.
So that's your science update. All about Colubridfest. So it's also Colubridfest, 2 for 1.
Thank you much, sir.
Yep.
All right. Well, we will move into the market update. And as always, the market update is brought to you by the Show Me Reptile Show and the Show Me Marketplace. You know, as we always say, Colubridfest, which we were just talking about, would not happen. It could not have happened if it wasn't for Mickey and the Show Me team. So if there's a Show Me show anywhere near you, please go out, support them, support those that support us. And by us, I mean those of us in the Colubrid community. So let's move into this. We're going to go into numbers because this is our first show in May. So we can now throw May numbers on there. Let's go ahead and we're looking at, for those who are listening and not watching, we're currently looking at the ball python and total listings graph. Running both of these lines here, you can see they tend to follow each other still back to back. And really from April to May, both continued on their downward trend, meaning we have fewer listings as expected. And as of right now, I like to not only look at, how it's trending from month to month, but I always like to look at that the May of this year compared to May of last year and what kind of differences we see. And from May of last year to this year, you've got ball pythons this year 23,985 versus 29,615 the same month last year. So like almost a 6,000 listing swing, quite a bit. Total listings 36,060 this year. Last year 41,944. So again, we continue to see that shift. But if you do run the numbers there, you actually see that there were fewer ball pythons. The gap in ball pythons is greater than the gap in total listings, meaning we're seeing more of other species still hitting the market in comparison. So good stuff there. Colubrid listings. So we go through those. We've got Pituophis, again, peaked in November, still dipping a little bit lower than April. As we went into May, corn snakes and their big ride that we see the peaks and the valleys. They've been on almost like a straight trajectory since I believe that was about March, just boom, 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 continuing to go down. So selling quite a few of corns, garters, pretty much remaining flat at this point, maybe a little bit less than last time. But when you've got so few listed, it doesn't take much to move that line up or down. Hognose, still the pinnacle of what's listed for sure. And you can see when you're looking at comparing it from corn snakes to hognose on this graph, the hognose, while still lower than last month, it doesn't go at the same rate. So you don't see that tick down quite like you do in the corns. House snakes are, again, almost flat line down there at the bottom. King snakes, again, about the same dip from April to May as everything else. Milk snakes, pretty flat compared to last month, just a little bit lower. Rat snakes, same thing, continuing on a little bit of a downward trend, but not nearly as much movement as some of the others. And then other colubrids were pretty much flat from April. But let's look at the big comparisons. Market share, look at that. Ball pythons are now 66%. So they went from being 4/5 of the market at one point, over 4/5, to now 2/3. So that, again, I just kind of like seeing that number get in a more manageable realm. Colubrids, 20%. Boas, 9%. Other pythons are making up 5% of the market listings. The colubrid market share. Hognose, still the big daddies there at 41%. Corn snakes, 24%.
We've got king snakes at 14. Milks and Pituophis are both at 5% each. Rat snakes, 8%. Other colubrids at 3%. And house and garters are both making up less than 1% for their categories. As I always say, so much room right there. So let's get into actual numbers for everyone. We're going to compare April to May. So ball pythons, there were 25,003. Let's talk about the dip. Had a change of 1360 from April to May, and the market share went from 70.1 to 66.5, so a 3.8 point decrease in ball pythons. Other pythons, we had a 49 increase, so 49 more pythons were listed than in April. And that increased their market share by 0.1. So not a whole lot of increase when it's only 49, but still, they were the only ones that went positive. Boas, there was a 204 decrease from April to May. So 0.6 point decrease. And colubrids, 727 less in May than April. That is 2 points. So market share went down 2 points. Overall, the entire market shrank 5.9 points when looking at listings. So again, nothing surprising, to be honest with you there. Everything pretty much jives with what we've seen in the trends in the past. So nothing that really stands out as extraordinary. As far as total listings for colubrids, Pituophis, 362. Corn snakes, 1708. Garters, a whopping 17 garter snakes are listed right now. Hognose, 2,852. House snakes, 28. King snakes, 981. Milks, 344. Rat snakes, 547. All others, 219. So let's kind of jump into current trends and patterns. I keep talking about how well shows have gone, and that there seems to be solid turnout. There seems to be a decent buying mentality at these shows. And sure enough, in the end of April, so last weekend of April, I believe it was my birthday weekend, so April 25th, we had the largest volume show that Metazotics has ever done, and that was in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was the 2-day show that Brian Hahn puts on, the Midwest Reptile Show out there. And I mean, it was a phenomenal show for us. And we're very grateful for Brian and the team out there. And I'm very grateful for the team here for all the preparation that was put into ensuring that we were completely set and ready for that show. I just want to give a shout out to all of them, because I mean, that was quite a feat, something I'm very proud of. But I also firmly believe that that was not luck. I mean, that was a combination of both being prepared and understanding what is resonating right now with the industry, as well as a concentrated effort by Brian on ensuring that that show did as well as it did. So graduation weeks are upon us. So what that is going to mean is I wouldn't be surprised if over the next 3 weeks you see things a little lighter, a little slower. Even the budgets that we're looking at in store for Metazotics are significantly lower than most weeks. And I think that's exactly what it is it's that going into summer, going into the end of school, going into graduations, all of that kind of takes everyone out of the let's get a new pet mentality. Instead, it's, where are we going to put our kids? Where are we going to park them for the summer? That kind of thing. So just know that that's going to probably, like I said, be about a 2 to 3 week ordeal. Don't panic if things get a little slower, over this time frame. Online is still hitting pretty hard. And that's mainly going to be because it's starting to get thinner in terms of what's out there and available. So if you've got anything that's good, or if you've got things that you need to maybe update your pictures on because the pictures are old and been out there for a while, do that, because online they're still paying strong attention. I think last week, Metazotics online sales made up right around 20%. I think it's like 19% of our total volume last week was all online. So it was definitely where people were paying attention. All right, sell down continues. And what I mean is the listing should continue to be a little less until through June. If it follows the same pattern that we've seen over the past 2 years now, June's the final month of the dip. And then as we go into July, you're going to start seeing more things listed. Gas is going to be a problem. And there's no way for us to do a market update and not flat out call that out. Gas is going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem in more ways than one. It's not simply how much we have to pay to put in our tanks. It's going to, and it already has started to affect the cost of everything else. I mean, I'm even seeing issues where minimum purchases with vendors have increased to try to offset some of the transportation cost to get items to us. We've already seen increases in products due to previous tariffs and things like that. But this is the longer the high gas prices last, the more that the cost of everything is going to increase, as well as the padding in the wallets of the general consumer is going to continue to decrease. So I'm going to give some tips in a moment on how to potentially kind of combat that to a degree. But obviously, super high gas prices are going to affect the economy, and there is no way around that. That is a macro event that is going to be out of our control. So some 30 and 60-day advice. I put questions to ask. I meant to delete that. Sorry. Book your travel for Colubridfest. I'm going to keep reminding you of that every episode until Colubridfest. So get your travel booked. Here's one of the things I really want to point out. This is something that is pretty true all the time, but during this gas increase, the gas price increase, this is going to ring even more true. The $200 to $500 mark, anywhere in that realm between $200 and $500, that's going to be an even sweeter spot right now than what it normally is. Basically, if it's less than $200, the consumer usually looks at an animal if under $200 as something not cool enough. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but it's not impressive enough. It's too common for a lot of those who are really in the hobby to feel that it's warrants their attention. However, over $500, you're starting to get into a rent payment and a car payment, and so that's, especially with gas going up, over that $500 mark is going to be a little bit of a hurdle. So right now, and going probably in the next 30 to 60 days, that $200 to $500 mark is going to be kind of the bread and butter spot on where people can still purchase and not completely break themselves in the process. So I would look at that, think of that. I'm not telling you to take your $1,500 animal and make it $300. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just telling you that is where I would put my attention on highlighting the animals that are in that particular range, because that's where it's probably going to be best for you. I would look at ways at trimming your shipping cost and or price and to offer specials where you can. If you are able to do things where you're offering pair pricing, if you are things that will, because shipping is going to go up just a little. I've seen where Morph Market has already attempted to give an extra discount to try to negate some of that already, but fuel costs are rising. So shipping costs naturally rise with that. So if you can offer pair specials, something where now that shipping cost is being divided amongst more than one animal, so it doesn't feel as hot and heavy, that's going to help you out. Just anything where, or it's, okay, normally it's a $500 animal. I can take $450 for it. Put that out like that. Just, you're going to want to do things that help offset some of the rising cost where you can. I'll also tell you, post anything you have available now. You have 60 days before it starts jumping, before there's going to be a lot more that's listed and you're more likely to be lost in the crowd. So if you've got something you're wanting to move, now's the time to get your pictures and get it posted. And that is your market update.
Boom. Well
Hope
done,
you
Clint.
enjoyed it. Thanks, sir.
All right. We ready to bring Jordan on?
I think we are. So since we are at our guest segment, the guest segment is always brought to you by ReptiChip. ReptiChip is something that we use here at Metazotics for really anything that needs humidity. And I know Zac uses ReptiChip out there to incubate eggs. And so we both enjoy. I just ordered another pallet today. Actually, today, like 4 hours ago.
The
so good stuff.
Incubated in that.
I love it. Love it. So please reach out, support ReptiChip, and get it at anywhere that it's sold.
Yes.
All right. Over to you, Zac.
All right. Welcome, Jordan. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
We're doing wonderful. We're happy to have you here. What was really funny is I mentioned that you were going to be on, and we got a lot of positive feedback from Python people because that's the circle currently that you definitely are whirling in. So we wanted to make sure that the Colubrid people got to hear about you, got to hear about your animals. Before we brought Jordan on, we were chatting, and he brought up Baird's rats and sent me a bunch of pictures of Baird's rats. And I asked him, how many Baird's rats do you have? Because you're well known, obviously, for Aspidites with blackheads and the womas and Morelia as well. And you're like, I don't know, maybe like 30. So if you have 30 of a snake, I think you're part of the Colubrid team too, my friend. So you definitely should be here. And that's why we're happy to have you.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. And I'll say, yeah, I mean, a lot of people know me as being Australian Python guy, and like you say, specifically Aspidites. But if you come to my table in Daytona, it is mostly Colubrids. And so that's and the Baird's rats, the Mexican Baird's has really kind of been a favorite species of mine for quite a while. And it's always fun because most people don't know about Baird's rat snakes, and the people who do are usually also other vendors. And so most of my Baird's rats sell on Friday at Daytona. And it's people running up and we're like, oh, I'm so excited you're here. And I sell them, and occasionally we'll see them on other people's tables through the weekend. They'll mark them up another $50-$80 and see if they can make a little bit of money, and then they're happy to take them home if not. But such an incredible species. But I work with quite a few different species of Colubrid currently, and in the past, a ton of different species. So.
Oh yeah, no. You also sent that price list from back in prehistory, and
35, 36 years ago. Yeah.
King. I was like, Jesus God, he's got all. So definitely happy to have you here to talk about Colubrids.
Thanks.
So with that being said, and you recently were on MPR, so if you enjoyed this interview, you need to listen to that, because truth be told, that was what inspired me to snag you for us. But you've had a very interesting upbringing with herps and field herping, and converting a father from not liking snakes to loving snakes. So we always ask people, how did you get to where you are today? So would love to ask that question here on CCR with like a Colubrid spin if possible. How did you end up getting to where you are, Perrett reptiles and everything else?
All right. And I'll try to keep this different enough from the NPR so the folks that go back and listen to that, they're not hearing the same thing. But essentially it comes down to there's many of us that, back in 4th, 5th grade, we were all dinosaur kids, right? We knew all the dinosaurs, right? And I just never grew out of that. And I think that's the easiest way to say it. I don't remember a time when dinosaurs, spiders, snakes, and lizards weren't the top of my mind. That's just, it's been who I am. And as you alluded to, my father, was in law enforcement. He spent quite a bit of time. Well, he grew up as a rancher in a ranching family in southern Alberta up in Canada. And there's certainly not much for snakes up there. And so, he didn't see much use for them, but, he was also in awe of the natural world. And so he taught me from a young age that, we spent a lot of time fishing and hunting. And it was a sacred thing to take the life of an animal, to harvest that animal. And we always had, we worked on the cattle ranch, and we had horses and everything that comes along with that. And I was, as soon as we made that transition, I was able to kind of convert him to putting up with my animals, to all of a sudden, he bought me a Burmese python, and then we started herping all over the American Southwest together. And as that transition happened, we started keeping animals. It was a rule in the house that you do not, we don't have a meal until the animals are fed, watered, clean, taken care of. Like that was the animals come first. They don't have a choice. If we're going to keep them, we have to keep them. And it's interesting you brought up Billy Sveen earlier, because I met him at IHS and have talked to him a few times since and listened to his podcasts. And I just loved having conversations with him and hearing discussing the ethics of keeping it. I think that's such a critical thing that I think occasionally people who get into this a little bit later in life that didn't have the experience to, catch that racer in their backyard, or the garter snake and the frogs and crawdads and everything else that we grew up catching. People who come into this a little bit later on, they might not, sometimes they're sold as an investment, and they don't have that. They don't understand the mystique, the passion, these are living, breathing animals that, and the more we learn about them, the more we understand that they experience much more of life than what we thought, right? Like, it's interesting that as I grew up, and it was such a strange, I never met anyone else who went and looked for snakes aside from little kids, right? So here in my teen years to do something that, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds were doing kind of put me at odds with what the world was doing, But now it's a standard thing, and lots of adults are into this, obviously, and it's a living, breathing hobby, lifestyle, industry, right? Like it's just part of common everyday everything. But growing up in the 70s and 80s, life just wasn't that way, and it was a strange thing to be into that, right? And you just never met. I remember the first time I met somebody who was into it, and it was like, wait, what?
I remember when I met somebody, and it was like I was side-eyeing them like, are you real?
Yeah, right.
You got to be weird, because I know this makes me weird.
Right. No. Yeah, I grew up at Target in West Virginia loving snakes. That's what.
Yeah.
So. No.
Yeah, one of the things that really caught me was I found a lot of similarities. The Venn diagram of who I was and what I appreciated in others was most closely overlapped with a lot of these invertebrate people who are out, with their UV lights, and sheets out at night. And had a friend of the family that took us out into the deserts of eastern Utah, the Moab, right up against the Colorado border, and would do that and get to see his pin collection of all these crazy bugs. And I was like, oh, this is cool, but how come nobody's doing this? Not that I wanted to stick pins in snakes and lizards, but how come there's not more people who are into, that aspect of it? And so it was really neat that my father kind of stepped into that role and was able to be converted to that. I mean, he just wasn't that initially. And as I said in the other podcast, I got grounded the first time I brought a garter snake home, and it was a big problem. And it was not long after that, maybe 8 to 10 months after that, he went and bought me a Burmese python. And then it was maybe 6 months after that him and I would drive from Canada all the way down to Las Vegas area in southern Utah. And we were herping and figuring that out, and caught a rattlesnake. Had no idea. We thought it was a timber rattlesnake, and then so now we had to buy a field guide because we had no idea what we had. But we knew it had a rattle, so it had to be a rattlesnake. And one thing led to another, and now my passion for books is probably equal to or greater than my passion for the reptiles.
Right there with you.
Yeah. I mean, I just can't get enough. And I hate in this day and age that it seems like books come out and they're available for 6 months, and then they're, no longer published, and they're just gone, and you add a zero to their price if you can. I'm about to say
price jumps, big time,
right? And so, I mean, that's probably my biggest current addiction. And for a while, that was one of my personal rules, is when I add a species to the collection, I'd make sure that I added at least a book. I needed to have more books than I had individual snakes or lizards in the collection. And so that's ramped up. Now I'd have to have 3 times the collection to match anywhere near what I've got in books. So
I think that makes you a smart man to have to stack that way. Well, you mentioned the collection. So what do you keep? Colubrid or not, just so the audience has an idea.
Yeah. So I probably should have put a list together before jumping on here. I intended to do that and didn't. I have been downsizing quite a bit over the last 4 years. And that's probably an interesting conversation worth us getting into, but I'll answer your question first. Before the big downsizing, I was up to 58 species that I was working with. And most of those snakes, and probably 2/3 of those colubrid. And so I've thinned that, like I say, quite a bit. I'm no longer working with some of the Asian rat snakes. I still have shrink eye and Citula, the Russian rat snakes, and the leopard snakes.
Oh, nice.
And got decent sized groups of both of those. Work with 100 flower snakes, though I haven't bred them yet. They're just now getting to the size. I've been growing them up for, they're 5 years old, 6 years old now. Yeah. So this year was the year, but I had some other stuff going on and didn't put them in together because I just didn't have the time. And so probably next year I'll give them a shot. Try to think obviously, as I said, Bairds. I've got Bairds. I've got several king snakes. It's funny. California king snakes have a special place in my heart. They always will be. It was amazing to find that first California king snake I ever did in a canyon, just a box canyon of red sandstone and just that orange red coral sand of Washington County, Utah, and cruising a road in the middle of the night and listening to Hotel California with my dad and the Eagles. And we just got a ticket for driving too slow, which I didn't even know was a thing. As we were, looking for snakes. And this is early on, we weren't quite sure what we were doing. And then all of a sudden and if you're familiar with the king snakes of Utah and Las Vegas, they're probably the most black and most white of any of the California king snake localities. And so just that you could see the dusting of red sand on this black and white zebra of a snake. And it had the crazy effect because it was a freshly paved road. And so this snake just was wild looking. Each one of those white bands, like the black just disappeared into the blacktop, but the white bands looked like they were just stood up and they just moved and rippled across the top of the road and just such a crazy thing. So I will always have a soft spot for California king snakes. And it's funny because I've told people, I don't really work with king snakes anymore. And then I go back there and it's like, I've got a rack of California king snakes of locality California king snakes, the Brawleys, the Umensis. I was fortunate enough to have a friend who actually was able to collect a female that turned out to be gravid California king snake from the same area that I'm talking about with the red sands. Oh, nice. And I got offspring from that. So I have I have offspring from the same canyon about 35 years, almost 40 years after I found my first one. And so when he says, hey, I've got these, I was like, oh, name your price. And I think he gave them to me, actually. I don't even think he asked for any money, but I was like, dude, you could have put a stupid number of zeros behind any number you want, and I would have paid it for that pair.
Nice.
So I'm super excited to have those. I've worked the most recently, just a few months ago, downsized again, and several animals went off to friends. So I don't have my Marina Del Reyes anymore, and
that was
some of the high whites and 50/50s and the aberrants and stuff. I've got out of most of those, and so really just down to, I got some Brawleys from Craig Trumbauer, and the male from the top looks like it would look like a Negrita, except it's jet black. It's not licorice. Cool. There's no brown or no hints of that. It is a jet black snake. But you look at the ventrals, just that one scale above the ventrals and then onto the ventrals, and you see the white band starting to come up, and then you see the face and the labial markings and everything is 100% Cal King. And so as I'm like, okay, I'm gonna divest my California king snake group, and it's like, I can't get rid of that. I can't get rid of that animal, you know. And Brawley is one of my least favorite places to herp in California. It just smells of agriculture chemicals, and it's a crappy place. Everything is just I mean, there's a little state park that's in there, but everything else is just agriculture, and it makes me cry a little bit inside every time I drive through that area. But having snakes that originate from there is really kind of neat, because it reminds me that place used to be something special.
Yeah,
right.
You know, yeah. But
cool.
So yeah, the California king snakes. I've got some Negrita. I've got some Splendida. You know, the Splendida or locality. My father since passed away, and one of my Splendida is one of the last snakes that my father had collected before he passed, and had given to my brother. And then I went out and collected a female from the same road, and then my brother sent me that snake, and so I've been producing those for a few years now.
That's
awesome. So I've got some nostalgia stuff like that. I still have some rosy boas, but I'm not breeding them anymore. You know, just some nostalgic stuff. The very last snake that I actually found with my father was a Long Canyon 5-line rosy boa. And so I still got that. I've got, let me think. I've got Loxocemus, the New World pythons. I've got, the Edisto Island mosaic king snakes. I've got Mean's Eye, some patternless Mean's Eye, and the picture that you used for the podcast is. I know you know Leonard Contreras. That's one of his big males, and I've got offspring from that. Enormous. That snake is a beast, and the animals that I've got from that, you know, offspring from that animal, are on pace to be that. I mean, 4 years old and probably twice the size of any California king snake I've ever had. Like,
and what's funny with that is if you read the Mean's Eye description, they talk about how Mean's Eye is smaller than Peninsular Floridana, and that is without question the biggest king snake from Florida. Not Florida king snake, but you know what I mean,
right?
Seen, period.
Yeah, it was a monster. And you know, at IHS in Tennessee, Bruce Means, Dr. Means was there, and I was talking to him, and I was like, "Oh, you're going to get a kick out of this." And I showed him that picture, and he's like, "You know, I don't keep animals anymore. That part of my life's behind me." He says, "But man, if I ever had an opportunity to keep something like that, I would be all about that." Yeah. So I did not produce a patternless that year, and Lenny did. And so Lenny sent it to me, and I went and took it to Bruce. And so Bruce now has offspring of that snake. And to me, that was like one of those full circle moments.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool opportunity to be able to do that and get a couple of books signed for Lenny and you know, kind of make that connection. It was a lot of fun. I've also got some Sinaloans. I've got black milks. I've got some black pines. What else do I have? I've got lots of Australian pythons, you know, as well as some Sanzinia, some Madagascan tree boas. And
so the Colubrids are outnumbering the pythons. Is that a fair statement?
In species, but not in quantities. I have a bunch of Aspidaites.
Oh,
I got lots of blackheads and lots of womas.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. So now, obviously, not all fall in this realm, but it sounds like, at least with Colubrids and I know some of your pythons there, you tend to lean a little more arid in what you like to keep. Is that a fair statement? Do you think that comes more from your herping history, kind of taking you in that direction?
For sure. For a long time, I had a rule that I wouldn't keep a species that I hadn't seen in the wild. And so I spent, and I know, Zach, you had mentioned maybe you wanted to talk a little bit about field work and forming keeping, vice versa. That's been a kind of the theme to my life. There's certainly things, well, there's lots of rabbit holes we could fall down. So rather than doing that, let me just address that directly.
Yeah.
Yes, there's certainly it weighs heavily into xeric species. I love the desert. I find herping the desert to be one of the most spiritual things that I can do. Like I feel so in touch with things. I find it to be very predictable. And I find caring for those animals to also be very predictable. When I've tried to work with some of the water python species and some even like the Florida king snakes and stuff, if you go on a 2-week trip and those water dishes go dry, you come home to dead snakes.
Toast.
Like, but yet most of your desert species, it's like, I don't want them to have any kind of a respiratory infection. So I make sure they've got clean water right up until the day I leave. And then I pull the waters and I can be gone for 2 weeks and come home and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but you've got to know what species is what. I mean, it really comes down to understanding the natural history and ecology of the species you keep. And 100%. I just don't know how well we can do that without getting in the field and spending time with them. Certainly you can with the books, right? Hence my passion for the book side of things is others have done that work, and you can certainly stand on their shoulders to work with some of those species. But there is a very different feeling that comes from that firsthand knowledge, that first time you see something, you know, and it gives you the context for that animal, right? It's like, oh, this is how I'll turn to live. You know, it's like you can look at pretty snakes and deli cups all the time, but when you see how harsh the world is that they come from, and you just saw 10-inch scolopendra dragging a baby atrox across the road, and now all of a sudden you see this little thing that it's like, in captivity you're going to be tease feeding and boiling pinks and braining and doing this and like, this thing just wants to die. It thrives in this environment that it's like, how does anything live out here? Like, if you were 8 inches tall, this would literally be like a planet from one of the Aliens movies or something. Like, everything's just trying to kill you and eat you and tear you apart. And these like, whether it's rosy boas or alterna or these baby rattlesnakes or like all these different species, they just, when you figure out that niche that they live in and you get down to that level and you sit there and watch them, the appreciation you get from that is amazing. Like, that's just changes.
I want to explore something you talked about.
Yeah.
And for some of our listeners, not to get hokey pokey or whatever. I don't even know if that's the right word.
Or turn yourself around. None of that.
Yeah, turn yourself around. There you go. Foo, whatever. But you nailed it for me. And you don't know it. The whole spiritual thing. I've had this thing in my head forever, and I'm going to try to actually write a paper this summer about this triangle of what it is to be a like how you reach kind of the zenith of herpetoculture, if you will. And I really honestly do not think you can get to that point without going to the wild and seeing these things. It drives me insane that, here I am. I'm literally wearing a shirt with false water cobras on it, and these are my snakes that are on the shirt. Okay. But I still feel like there's just a huge piece missing because I have not gone to Argentina. I have not gone to Bolivia. I've not walked in that horrible humidity and, you know, being a big guy, that's not the best place to be. But I know that when I get down there, and I'm getting down there, I'm trying to make plans for the fall of 27. Because the thing that's, I can't just go because the time of year kills me because it's the middle of a semester. But I'm planning a sabbatical. And as part of the sabbatical is a 2-week trip down there. But I'm 100% certain that I will go down there, even if I don't find the snake. I really want to find the snake. I will be bummed if I don't find the snake. But I also know me, and just knowing that I am where they were, that is, there will be some kind of connection to me in that ground and the water and everything else, where I will come back and I'm going to change my keeping. It's just going to happen. And it's been happening with the Hognose book with me, because that's why it was so important to get out there. And every time I go out and see these damn things in the wild, I come back and change something.
Oh, for sure.
And as hunters have to know what we're talking about, because when you go out and you set up your stand or you do whatever, you have a perception of, all right, my stand should be here because the deer are going to be here. Right. And then you go and you sit in that stand 2 or 3 days and you don't see a freaking deer, but they're all behind you. Right. So now you have to like reevaluate. Well, why did I think they would be here? They weren't here, but they were behind me. Oh, now I see the whatever that's driving that. And that whole mental process, there's just absolutely no way. There's just no way you can go through that process and then come back and be like, oh, yeah, I'm doing everything right. You either have to be the largest narcissist a-hole on earth. That's the only way that you don't change what you're doing. It happened with me when I found my I went down to the cane fields of Florida, found my first Florida king snake in the spring break of 23. And those coral rubble rocks in the cane fields, the students were so pissed at me because I was like, we're putting about half a ton of them in the minivan. And they went, what? I'm like, no, they're going in the minivan. These are the rocks that the kings are in. I want those in my cages. And I still have those rocks, and they're still Florida king snakes, slithering around them. But I agree with you 100%. It's the Venn diagram that leads to the best keeper you could be, and you have to get out there. You just have to.
Well, you have to recognize that no matter how much you know very little, right? It's that whole Dunning-Kruger thing. The second that you think you've got it figured out, you're the wrong part of that Dunning-Kruger chart, right? Like you just, there's no way. And I've been herping. So to go back a little bit to my history, my father, being a hunter and fisherman first, it was all about understanding the animals. And we treated, as we got into herping, we treated looking for snakes the same way we treated our fishing holes. We didn't, when we discovered that there was other people doing that, and we moved to Southern California from Canada, and we would even go to some of the reptile societies, the San Diego Herp Society, and there was one in LA, I forget what it was called, and starting to get involved with some of these people. We never told them what we were doing. We never brought people who were into it with us. My father, as an educator, after he left being undercover narcotics, became a teacher, and he would take his students and the parents of the students. And one time we got pulled over by Fish and Game, and the next thing you know, my dad's out there with Fish and Game teaching them how to find stuff. And it was like he was all about educating people. But if someone was into it, we were very tight-lipped about it. And so I'd never really herped with anyone except for my father or my wife until about the last 15 years. And so it was a very personal thing, which kind of goes back to the spirituality of it, right? Like it wasn't for my ego. I wasn't looking, there was not, obviously initially there wasn't INAT, there wasn't there wasn't Facebook and Instagram, and what'd you take pictures of? Like I initially was quite frustrated, and then now I find it humorous that, like, when I'm out in the middle of nowhere in Australia and I run across some German or Italian or Australian or other American out there, the first question they ask is, what's your Instagram? And it's it's like, well. And I finally did start putting together an Instagram in the last year, just because I've got so many people who were asking me about stuff. And rather than having to get my phone out each time, it's like, oh, you can just jump on my Instagram and see it. But like, I hardly put up anything from last year's herping. I don't put up stuff in the season that I'm doing it. I don't want people to, and I still have that. But at the same time, I feel like I want to give back, and I want to start being more social and helping people and going out and doing and whatnot. And you quickly realize, again, like I said, every time that I think that I know something, I've given somebody information. It's the old adage, you tell someone, oh, you're for sure it's going to happen. It's just never going to happen. It's like, oh, tonight is it. And I did that to myself this past weekend with someone, Zach, and I'll tell you a little bit about that offline, but they were in a place that I know very well, and the conditions looked like it was perfect. And I was like, yeah, you're going to see him tonight for sure. Like 100%, you could not miss, like, you've got it. And of course, they didn't find him.
But
we know all about that, don't we, Zach?
Right.
Every time we've been promised.
Yeah. But there's so much to it, right? And that's also the fun thing is, I always joke that West Texas, the River Road specifically, is my favorite place in the world to get skunked. It's just, I don't have to see a single living thing. I can roll the windows down, watch that sun drop off of the big hill, and just cruise up and down that road. And just knowing that at any moment you could see a blonde Trans-Pecos, you could see an Alterna, you could see a bright orange Lepidus, you could see, spotted skunks, you can see a Cotamundi, you could see, like, what couldn't you see? Like, there's just so much that you could do. And it's the anticipation of that in the setting that's epic. Like you couldn't get, there's no postcard that even compares to any vista you could stop literally at any 15 feet along that road and take a picture, and you could make a postcard out of it and people would buy it. Like, it's just one of the most amazing places on earth. Anza Borrego is like that. There's, there's just so many places in the world that are like that. And when you get there, man, when you get dialed in and you figure it out, it's no longer about even having success with the snakes. And so I get super excited whether or not, and so it's tough when someone's out there and they have a target species and they really want to see it so bad. And it's like, I've never had a bad night there. I've been skunked a lot there, but I've never had a bad night there. It's just, and sometimes that gets crossed in my head, and it's like, oh yeah, no, it's going to be amazing. But if they don't have the context, if they haven't been there before, they haven't fallen in love with the place, it's pretty easy to overpromise and underdeliver when you take people places. So
100%. No, that's what I love about herping. I like when you get dialed in after a couple days of, just this worked, this didn't work, this worked. You found a couple of what you're looking for, but you haven't really had your honey hole moment.
Right.
And my favorite is when you're locked in and then just something tells you, look left.
Yes.
And then you just, boom, there it is. Like that, to me, there's nothing better than that. That happened. That's how I found my first Western hog. I was out in Colorado, and Rob Stone and a couple people helped us out with that. And my students were finding them, but I hadn't found mine yet. And I kept my secret, which Clint now knows, is I don't like to be with the group. When the group is here, my thing is I just kind of sneak off to the, and then I'm on my own. And I finally got to do that, and I found a bull snake like with its head digging out a gopher burrow. I just got to watch it for like 8 minutes, which was great. And I'm walking around holding this bull snake because we hadn't found the bull snake yet. And the vegetation kind of cleared out, the sun was right, and it just looked there. And then there was the hog perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, now I get it.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can explain this all you want, but until you actually have gone through this process.
Yeah.
And then immediately I started thinking, well, why is it there now? And then, kind of teasing it all apart and looking at the sand temperature and, everything else. But no. Yeah. Very cool.
One of the conversations my dad and I had frequently as we were cruising like the deserts of Anza Borrego or up in the Panamint Valley up in Central California. I guess you'd call it Central California, Eastern Central California. He would frequently, the two things he went to school for, his degree was religions of the world, but the other thing he was deep into was physics. And we would have a lot of deep conversations and talk a lot of science. And he would talk about how our bodies are amazing, how they're just a conglomeration of all these different sensory organs that many of which we don't understand, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's the big thing right now. Physics is trying to figure out what consciousness even means, right? Mm-hmm. And yet we can roll the window down, stick your hand out, kind of feel the air and be like, we are going to find a boa tonight. And you find a rosy boa on the side of the road, right? Like there's just something, and you could have all the sensors and be like, well, it's 80 degrees, 82 degrees, and it's, 42% humidity, and it's barometric pressures at 29. Like you can have all that data, and it's like on paper that looks good, but there's just something about that night that feels off. And you can't quantify what that is, but when you spend enough time looking for a certain species in a very specific area, man, there's just some kind of magic that happens, and you can call your shot more often than not. And that's a weird thing, you know. And this last year, it kind of happened with the Centralian pythons, with Justin and I walking through the McDonald ranges, and we're like day 8 or something of the trip with all the guys, and we get out, and like you say, everyone went one direction, and Justin and I are like, hey, let's go the other direction. And we're just walking along, and it's like we've been looking for these things for days and days and days. Like I say, we're past a week in, and it's not like we've been saying this all the way along, but I just come to this tree, and I had this feeling. I'm like, man, this is going to be the tree. And he's like, no. I've got this feeling that this is the tree. And a little bit of that is just kind of, you know, getting each other's goat and whatnot. But there was just a feeling. It was like, it's going to be here. And I was actually really disheartened, which I hadn't been in days of not seeing a single one. Right. But there was something about not having one in that tree that really kind of bothered me. And it was like 12 more steps. And there's one at the very next tree. And I mean, it's coincidence for sure, but maybe also there was something there, right? Like maybe there's something that my subconscious had picked up on, that something's happening, and whether that's barometric pressure was dropping and I could feel that. And I know, you know, certainly there's those times when you feel the barometric pressure drop and the wind starts blowing, and my blood just starts pumping. I can feel my heart racing because I know the snakes are moving now. Like wherever I'm at, stop what I'm doing. I don't care if I'm eating or taking a picture of something. There's snakes on the trail. There's snakes on the road. There's snakes in that rocky outcrop. I just got to get out there because stuff's moving now, not 15 minutes from now, not 5 minutes ago. It's moving now. Let's do it. And so that's an interesting thing. And to kind of bring that full circle, there's a lot of that we can use in what we do with our reptile collections, right? Like it's that rhythm of the room, but who defines that rhythm? It's us. Like we've got to figure that out. We've got to provide the right levers and get them at the right settings, and then be consistent enough with it that the animal's biology can then take over from there and do the things it's supposed to do. But we have to have enough of an understanding of what those levers are and the biology of the animal to understand what works and what doesn't work. You gotta know the basics. You can follow a recipe, but man, is it so much more rewarding when you understand it and you can actually start playing with it and getting different results.
Yes.
So real quick, I want to say, first off, I'll ask you guys, do you know those Dos Equis commercials, the beer?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? The most interesting man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So right now, Jordan, that's what I'm picturing your dad as.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I'm recapping what I've picked up. So he was an undercover narcotics agent, correct?
Yeah.
I heard that right?
Yeah, with Interpol for a while. Yeah.
Okay. Then he was a professor of, was it religious studies?
He was a professor. That was just what he went to school for. That was what he was working on when he was working on his master's. So he was just studying that.
Still. He's real into physics, correct? Yeah. You know, I heard that, and has herped all over the western, at least, you know, side of the United States. Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, you were raised by the Dos Equis guy. I mean,
I joked at his funeral.
So
I joked at his funeral that they say Superman wore Chuck Norris pajamas, but I think Chuck Norris wore my dad's face on his pajamas.
Love it. Yeah, very.
My dad was an amazing man. It's really tough knowing that he's not around. I mean, anyone who knew him, I think was brightened by it, and those who never had a chance to, you really missed out in life. And I hate that my son's growing up not really knowing who his grandfather was. He's just was an incredible guy.
Wow, very cool, man.
We honor him here at CCR for sure.
Yeah, I love hearing these stories for sure. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So
before, like, you know, I don't know if we're about to step away from field herping or not, but at this point, you know, it sounds like you've had a tremendous amount of herping experience, and I'm sure you have a tremendous amount of herping stories.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know, like, what was that pinnacle story for you? What's that lifer that you stumbled across? What was that big moment where that's the one that always stands out?
It doesn't have to be a colubrid either.
No, anything. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you that's a tough one. And I will say that the breadlight, the Centralian Python one that I just shared, is one that I've talked about in the past. It's on other podcasts. If people want to go and listen to the details of that story, that was a big one. The inland carpet python in the Flinders Ranges that I found with my family a year and a half ago, that would be a hard one to top. I've told that story on a couple of different podcasts and at Reptilandia for those who got to see that in person. But man, I'll tell you, I've had some really neat experiences with, in the States and with Colubrids. I had lunch with a good friend today, Hank Van Jocelyn, and he's kind of one of those boutique keepers. He does dry mark-on stuff, and he's used to do a lot of he still does some milk snake and Alterna stuff, but he's got just an incredible dry mark-on collection. And so we had lunch today and we were talking about it, and he asked me the question, and this kind of plays into this. He asked me if what I've found in the wild, what are some interesting things that I found, morphs that I found in the wild. And on Father's Day, well, so one year my father found a roadkill lavender albino California king snake, little hatchling. On a road that we've probably found 200-300 California king snakes on over the years. And on Father's Day, the following year, I took my brother-in-law out with me. He's not a herper, but just figured he'd get a kick out of it. And it was perfect conditions. I knew we'd find several king snakes that night. And as the sun was going down, found a 4.5-foot lavender albino that had just dropped eggs on Father's Day. That look that they have, the high vertical ridge. And, it just, when you've produced enough snakes, you're like, dude, she dropped eggs in like the last 5 hours. Like she's like fresh coming off those eggs right now. Scars on her and everything else. But yeah, a T positive albino sitting on the shoulder. So walking in on Father's Day, we drove straight from there to my parents' place. And I walked in and I handed my dad the bag and I'm like, Happy Father's Day, and he opened it up and here's this. And it took him a couple minutes to realize this is a wild caught snake that I had just found for him. That was incredible. But also him and I found the first aneuphoristic rosy boa that ended up being in Anza Borrego that was blue. I mean, just a bright, like a blue snake with champagne purple blotches and stripes down its back. And that got bred into the whitewater albinos and produced the Carlson Snows. That was one of those moments. We were driving down this road and it was one of those perfect nights. And I think it was a 5 boa night. And you rarely see rosy boas in the middle of the road. And there was this young boa in the middle of the road and hop out and it was dead, but it was blue. It was an aneuphoristic, but it was dead. And so I'm just devastated, jet black eyes, move it off the road. And we go to turn around to do another pass. And we literally turn around and my dad says, I thought you were going to throw that snake off the road. And here's another neonate. And I go out there in almost the exact same spot. And it was alive. Wow. So there was a litter of them that had just been born. Yeah. And, one had just been run over by a truck that was pulling a boat right in front of us. And we literally, maybe 2 minutes later, and there's another one on the road right there. And then I went on to find it. I found a big adult 15 years after that, a big adult female that I found that was aneuphoristic, and found some of the early hypos that were really cool. The hypo Borregos that were peach and on cream colored and really neat stuff, and found a leucistic banded gecko near Phoenix one time with my father. And that was really cool. I mean, that was a really neat animal. So there's just been some really cool finds that way. But, like I say, that first California king snake really stands out as probably one of the biggest ones, just because I was so young, and the majesty of being in such an incredible place and seeing something that just looked so out of place, like just shouldn't exist there. We're in a red canyon. Why is there a black and white snake stretched across the road? So
I was 42 when I found my first California king snake in the wild, and I almost stepped on it.
Yeah,
right back.
Dancing all around it, and Roy and I were convinced it was dead
because it's in between my feet, and I'm like, where is it? Back and forth, and it's look down, stupid.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you now that you bring up Roy. So last year, believe it was right after you guys had gone out with Roy. It's almost exactly a year ago. I was with Roy and Sam Perrett from the UK, which, funny enough, it looks like we were probably related. Same last name. It's a strange last name. We started looking into some genealogy stuff, and about 5 generations back, my family left the exact same part of the UK that his family still lives in. So we've got to be, but like, how strange is it to have 2 herpers from totally different parts of the planet? And, so the 3 of us went out to West Texas together, and we basically found everything except for the Alterna. And it was on May 30th, and we're driving. I was like, I just had this feeling that if we left the western part of Alterna Range and we got up to a little bit more eastern, move towards, not to the Edwards Plateau, but start moving that direction, where there were some storms happening, we might have some better success with some different species and maybe find an Alterna. Unfortunately, I get a phone call from my sister, and my mom was passing away, and they were turning off the oxygen, and things were really tough, and she did pass away. I'm in one vehicle, and the other 2 are in a vehicle behind me, and I hadn't told them that's what had happened, and I was teary-eyed and trying to drive while I'm crying. Just lost my mom. It was a really tough situation, and man, you think my dad was cool. My mom, she was amazing. School teacher her whole life, and just known for walking out and picking up 5-foot, 6-foot gopher snakes out of a parking lot when it's 100 degrees and they're hissing and striking, and she just walk out there and pick it up where everyone's like dancing around them and thinking it's a rattlesnake, and they called the police and stuff, and she just walk up and pick it up. And that repeated over and over and over again in the parking lots of the schools she worked in Southern California. But she passed away that day. And so I finally was able to get my emotions under control enough that I could talk about it. We pulled off the side of the road, and I told the guys, I said, man, we're going to find an alternative tonight, because we got an angel on our shoulders tonight. And that's a tough shot to call, right?
Yeah.
My first Alterna, my second Alterna was 23 years or 24 years in between them. But I've never been a big Alterna guy. I've never really targeted them until just the last few years, really. I've always had them and kept them, but it's kind of a losing proposition when you'd come out here with it, for years being illegal and just so many challenges with it. So we'd always come out to West Texas, but I was always more interested in the rattlesnakes and bears and lyre snakes. And there's so many other cool things that the Alterna guys just felt like they had blinders on to me. I was like, dude, do you guys not realize that everything else out here is at least as cool as Alterna? Like, I do love them, and I've always kept them until recently. And I still, I was out there last weekend looking for them. And if I could, I'd be out there in a couple days. It looks like it's fantastic right now. But yeah, to call that shot was an interesting one. And I was like, oh, there, I did it. I said, we're going to find something. We're not even going to see a spider tonight. It's going to be nothing. And we get out to this rock cut that I felt like we had as good a chance as anywhere. And I was like, well, I'll let them have the easy bit, and I'll let them walk the cut on the face of the cut. And I'll walk up on the top, because it's kind of blazing trail and it's a little more difficult. And I can see a lot less, so they're more likely to find something. I wanted them to be the ones to find it. And so we get very first pass, we get about halfway across the cut, and then there's that scream. And so, Sam, I believe, is the one who spotted it first. And I'm like 30 feet above them on this sheer cliff, and hearing him screaming and freaking out. And I'm like, just watch it. I'm a big proponent of, I herp with my hands behind my back, and I don't grab them. I like to watch, because if you just see a snake and you pick it up, there's a few inferences you can make. But if you can be hands off and then watch, where do they go? What do they do? That said, I don't hold it against anybody when they see their first Alterna and they're wearing their vest and they got their permit and they've traveled halfway across the world and they see one. Yeah, I would pick it up too. You pick that thing up, and it was a stunner. I mean, one of the prettiest Alterna I've ever seen. And a female, and I've got buddies who had males from there and needed to pair them up. So was an amazing find. But having that on the night that my mom passed, and
that's a cool
and
story.
being with, Sam, that's got to be a relative, that having that weird connection. And then Roy, anyone who knows Roy just knows that he's just such an impressive person, an insightful, old soul. I mean, everything about him, we just clicked, and that trip was just amazing for me. He shared one of his poems. I hope he forgives me for saying this in public space, but he'd visited a part of Glacier National Park and had written a poem about it. And it turns out that it's one of the areas that my grandfather had helped build the trails for and worked in that part of the park. And our family ranch came right up to that. And as scouts, as a young scout, we used to hike into that and spend our week-long Boy Scout camps in that area. And part of the Chief Scout Award that I got as we had to do these survival camps. And so we did a week-long camp there. And it's a heck of a place to get to. I've never met another person who's even heard of this place. Not only had he been there and heard of it, he'd been there. Not only had he been there, but he wrote a poem about it. And man, it was one of those connection moments. And I told him about this one place in West Texas, and I was like, man, this is my church, and I got to take you to it. And I think you're going to be impressed. And we pulled up to it, and was getting all teary-eyed sharing that with him. And he got out and he looked at me. He's like, man, I get it. Like, this is everything you promised and then some. And it was just one of those moments, and for having that trip and then having it end with my mom passing while I was there and being with guys that were so like-minded and really appreciated the full spectrum of what was really happening was cathartic. I mean, it was just an amazing experience. And so that's another one of those, trying to call out a favorite experience across 40 years of being in the field. I've got, I thought of 3 others just as I'm sharing that story. Right. There's just so much going on out there that I can't imagine a life where I can't be out there.
Well, and I think that typically when a question like that gets tossed out, I don't think that it's asked necessarily for a favorite, because to your point, right, it's going to, garner 5 things that pop in your mind. And it's just knowing that whether there's a favorite or not a favorite, we're about to get something good. We're about to get something meaningful.
Well, I hope I didn't disappoint.
No, that was great. I mean, and I can see why everything in that story, I mean, that's it so much, and why I can see why that was so impactful and so memorable for you for many reasons, obviously.
Yeah.
But wow, that's, that's an incredible. And I will tell you, I kind of get that now. It wasn't nearly the same, but I think it was 2 years ago. I was sitting in a deer stand. And so after my father passed away, we took his ashes, and we've got property that's where he wanted them to be spread. So we spread it there. But I took some of his ashes and I spread them in places in that property that were special to me, so that I could kind of feel that, when I'm in those areas myself, he'd still be there. Well, one of those was my deer stand. And because that's where I'm by myself. That's where I'm at the most, I would feel the most in tune with nature, because you're sitting there for hours, right, quiet, listening.
And now he could share that every harvest with you.
Right. Yeah. And what was funny is I verbally said it, very quietly, but I verbally said, I'd been sitting there for hours and hours one day. And I was like, just send one to me, Dad. Just send one to me. And I kid you not, 5 seconds. 5 seconds later, deer walks out. And I'm, I didn't get a shot. So then I'm like, all right, next time, Dad, send one where I can shoot it. But I the fact that you said that, and I get that exact sentiment, because it was 5 seconds later.
Yeah.
Deer walks out after me being there all day, so very powerful. And thank you, Jordan, for sharing such a story that I know had to, kind of hit you as you were saying it. So
it's tough to keep it together when I talk about my parents. It just really, it's not lost on me how special my upbringing was and how great my parents were throughout every aspect of my life. So thanks for the opportunity to share that.
No worries, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up about the spreading the ashes. My mother passed of cancer, and we talked a while before she passed of, what she wanted and what she expected. And I shared with her something that I, want to do. I don't know if I'm doing it to my children or for my children, but I'm going to give them a basically a list of places that I want my ashes spread. And it's going to be those places that I was just referring to, those special, those spiritual places, those places I have this connection to, whether that be, I've got a couple of those places are in Australia. So they're going to have to pony up some bucks, and maybe if I leave them a penny or two, that's what they use it for, right? They got to get down there, and I want them to stand in the places that I've stood and look up at constellations they don't get to see. I want them to feel the impact of that and feel me there with them, some places that were special to my dad to help them be connected to that area that I was connected to through my father. And I think giving them kind of a wild goose chase, some kind of a
experience is what you're giving them.
Yeah, it's giving them an experience and a reason to go do that. And then they've got that list with them that they can maybe revisit those places and see, they get a little bit of age and a little bit of life experience behind them and understand, why I was who I was. And I'm hoping that resonates with them. And I certainly wish my dad would have done maybe a little bit something like that with me. He didn't. That's not who he was. But it's just such a cool thought, I think. And maybe, like I said, I don't know if I'm doing it for them or to them. We'll have to. I'll ask them in the afterlife and see if they appreciate that or not. But you bring that back to the herping aspect of it. I did listen to when Gerald Merker was on a while back, and you guys talked a little bit, and I think you covered this with Jerry Hartley a little bit as well, but localities. Yeah. And really, that's what I'm talking about. I want my ashes spread in localities, and you guys talk with both of those gentlemen about what localities means to them. And I'd kind of like to maybe talk a little bit about localities and what that means to me, if that's all right.
Please do.
No, do it. We can have you back on to talk about bears.
Yeah.
Hey, there's not much to talk about bears. They're the coolest rat snake out there. The Lamprepeltids, they are it. And if you don't know that, reach out to me. Now we've said everything there is to be said about bears. We can talk about anything else.
Done.
No, but when you guys mentioned that, like on the East Coast, a lot of localities are county, or even state, right? This is a North Carolina this, or it's a, Washington County that, or, but you don't see that so much when you talk about Alterna, when you talk about the rosy boas, when you talk about a lot of the California king snakes. And the reason is when you're out East, every county is the size that you could ride a horse to the county center if you got called in to be in front of a judge at any point. Right.
Yeah.
And your counties, as you go to West Texas, are the size of most states out East, and the counties in California. Right. They're massive, massive counties, and you just can't do that. And what also happens as you move to the American Southwest is geology. And there's very little geology in the East because it's all covered by grass and trees and mud and everything else, right? But as you start moving west, you have, and I also think that locality is highly personal. So as I say this is also heavily biased by someone who's fully passionate about the desert. We talked about that early on. That's what I keep, and it's because that's what I like to herp. But when you're in the desert, the geology of an area is exposed. Yeah. And so that even kind of resonates when you start talking about, like the Baird's rat snakes. It's one of the reasons I love Baird's is they're a saxicoline species that in these xeric areas where the rocks are exposed, and whether that's the limestone fissures of the Edwards Plateau where you find them, or you start moving farther west and you get up into the Davis Mountains and you've got some more basalt and some different rock types, or you move even farther west and you get into Sendacolas, into the Sky Islands of Arizona and down into Mexico, and now you start talking about some granitic stuff, and as the rocks shift, you end up with different species and different, and so part of the locality stuff, like with rosy boas, you go with this one canyon and it's predominantly this yellow granite rock, and the next canyon over has got more gray, and the next canyon over is more orange. And those rosy boas will trend to look more like, those ground colors will trend to match that. Now, of course, people will say, oh, I bought this rosy boa. Is it a Trona, or is it a, you can't tell after you've got it. Any one individual could actually match 10 or 15 or 20 different places it could come from there. But at the same time, if you've seen enough of them, you're going to have a pretty good guess of where that animal came from. And there's that aspect of it too. But to me, locality is quite frequently, like I keep localities that I've herped because that means something to me.
Yeah.
I don't keep 9 Mile North Alterna because I've never had success in 9 Mile North. I've herped it. I found some really cool stuff, some really cool lepidus and milk snake, and some the Tantilla cocolatas, the huge Tantilla that eat the big scolpendras. But it doesn't mean anything from an Alterna standpoint, so I don't keep Alterna from there, or didn't when I did keep Alterna. But I kept 5 Mile East Sanderson because I found him at 5 Mile East. I've found quite a few on 277 because that's the closest. I live in East Texas, and that's a 6-hour drive for me instead of a 12-hour drive to get to to Sanderson and out farther west. And so places that mean something to me because I've been there, I've herped there. When I open up that drawer and I see a Baird's from Boy Scout Road, that's not just a snake from Boy Scout Road. That's the smell of the petrichor, the smell after a rain, and you just know that stuff's going to be moving, and it's very distinct from the type of rocks that are there, the amount of mesquite versus juniper versus the scrub oak quercus that might be in that area. There's a very distinct smell that comes from there. There's a very distinct feel in the air. There's a very distinct humidity in the way the rocks cast light as the sun's dropping, and the shade of the rocks and everything else. When I see that snake, I'm seeing all of that. I remember the first time I saw a big subhawk, hoping it was a Baird's that was, along the rock side there. All the times I hoped I'd see an Alterna there and didn't. The Boy Scout Road means something to me because I've been there. And so that's, to me, it's a little bit tough when I sometimes go to a show and I go to a table of someone. I use the term deli cupper, and I don't mean it to be a negative thing. We all have phases, and there's certainly, even now I keep species that I've never seen in the wild, and I'm hoping to get to China to see 100-flower rats and to see some different stuff, which I just haven't had an opportunity to yet. And I think that's the flip side of the coin, and we'll get there too. But it's tough to see people and they don't know why a locality is a locality, or they say, oh, this is this mixed with that. And it's like, well, you mix this locality with that locality. It's a generic, like there's none of the magic that comes from being there. Now, I'm also a student of Craig Trumbauer. He's a mentor. He's a personal friend. And I completely agree with him that as soon as you take something out of the wild and you're not breeding 5s, you're holding back your 10s and breeding 10s, that they cease to be locality pure. Yes. But I also don't typically buy locality stuff. My locality stuff quite frequently came from somebody that I trust and love and herp with and have been around. And like those Brawley Kings came from Craig Trumbauer, who came from Gary Kiesler. I know the lineage on those, and it's special partially because of that. And I can trace that all the way back to when it came out of the wild. And I know that area, I've herped that area. And so that to me means something. But if I saw that on a table and someone's like, oh yeah, this is a Brawley. I'm like, oh really? Where, give me some backstory on that. Oh, I don't know. I got it in a 3-way trade with someone a few years back. And it's like, oh, is that really but that's my bias, because I'm a guy who first is out in the field and second is a keeper. Right. So, and when I said, that's the flip side, is I also have, while my rule at one point was don't keep anything unless you've seen it in the wild, I started doing the other side of things, and that especially with the pythons before I started going to Australia, is I started keeping species that I wanted to find in the wild because I wanted to inform my field herping from my keeping. When are they most active? What do they, what are things that I do in captivity that are going to translate to finding them in the wild? And I've had a lot of success with that too. And so I think they inform back and forth. And I've talked a little bit about how that worked for me when I was racing cars. I would spend a lot of time in a simulator to learn stuff that you don't want to blow a $20,000 transmission in a car trying to learn how to, heel and toe and left foot braking at when you're on the edge. You don't want to do that. So you learn it in the simulator so that you can do it in the car. But then when I'm out in the car in the real world, I learn these techniques and I get to feel what pulling those G's around the corner and when you're apex and everything else. And that comes back to being faster in the simulators. And when I get in iRacing and I actually get to drive against some people who are racing professionally and be able to hang with them for a half a lap and watch them slowly pull away instead of them just dust you. And I find herping and keeping is the same way. It's like, use your keeping to make you a better herper. Use your herping to make you a better keeper.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting real close to our final question.
Okay.
So I know we're getting close there, but before we do, we've kind of taken directions a little different than what we normally do, and I need to take a quick pause, and so that we can thank ZooMed, who really usually covers when we get into the meat of our topic. We're a little behind schedule on that. We've been deep into the meat. So if anything, ZooMed will be sponsoring our final question of the night.
Yeah.
So Max, can you send us in, please?
CCR is proud to be sponsored by ZooMed Laboratories.
Max.
ZooMed has been servicing the reptile industry since 1977. And in 1993, they introduced us to the Repticide, the very first UVB bulb specifically for reptiles.
In addition to boasting a 1,200-item product line, ZooMed also has an extensive reptile breeding program, with many species being kept at their incredible greenhouse facility located in California.
Thank you, ZooMed, for supporting Colubrid and Colubrid Radio.
Thank you, ZooMed. Sorry for the delay on that one.
That's okay.
But Zach, I'm going to toss it over to you because just in case there's another question that you want before we move to that final one. So we'll let you.
We're having you back on if you want to come back on.
Oh, absolutely. That's great.
I'd love to. Some of my favorite episodes are where we just kind of
just absolutely. And also, Zach, we've been talking about putting together a Texas trip, and I think that the names on that list, we keep adding new ones to it. So of individuals that are going to make that a worthwhile one. So Jordan, I certainly hope when we reach out and ask if you'll partake that you'll
wouldn't miss it. Yeah, that'd be a blast.
All right, cool. Okay. Well, I'm gonna just leave it up to the final question. And you are going to IHS, is that correct?
I am, yes.
All right. And we'll carry this conversation on there.
Cool.
Definitely. Now, I'm excited for IHS real quick. Not a so gentle plug for IHS. We talk about Colubridfest, but for the love of God, if you liked this conversation, you will lose your mind at IHS, because this was an IHS primer, because this is what you do when the talks are done and you're just kind of sitting. The only problem is it's in the middle of the damn desert. So I really don't think, I know that this West Virginia boy is going to be running around that desert all night. I'm going to be so damn tired by the end of that week. I'm good. But anyway, if you like this and you're in it and you're like, wow, this was a good one, please consider going to IHS. It'll be worth every penny you can pay. But with that being said, our final question is always about the state of herpetoculture and the future of herpetoculture. Do you like what you're seeing? Do you not like what you're seeing? I mean, you've been in this for a while.
Yeah.
And you brought up lots of valid points on localities and spirituality associated with what we do, and keeping what having rules to follow as a herpetoculturalist kind of gives you, I feel like that structure actually adds to it a bit. Because I know that I've done the spinning out lately and I pull myself back to center. But with that being said, future herpetoculture. You like what you're seeing? You not like what you're seeing? Do you not care about what you're seeing because you're listening to
I will tell you that it's really easy to be a cynic and to be a Debbie Downer about how things are going. And I get how people are concerned about how that one species that they work with isn't doing well and in the market, and they feel like, maybe they misjudged getting in, or it's not the get rich quick scheme that their friends told them about or whatever else. I think for those who are passionate about the species that they work with and did it right and bought into something because they loved working with that species rather than did it for the money, I think it's an amazing time. I think there's more diversity. I think the market shows that. I'm pretty excited about where things are going. I took about a 15-year break from the commerce side of things and came back, and I was expecting to see just incredible work done specifically in the colubrids, because I thought, man, the Puebloan milk snakes were just going to be glowing, and just perfect contrast. And there's going to just be amazing Goinai means eye out there, and some really cool Floridana that people have worked with and taken to the very extreme of what nature has in the genes for some of these species. And I was really disappointed. Now, this is almost 15, 18 years ago. I was really disappointed to see that it was, leopard geckos and crested geckos came on the scene, and bearded dragons and ball pythons and almost nothing else. And that's certainly not the feel I get now. And I believe we're moving in the right direction. It's really cool to go to Daytona and to go from table to table and see stuff that my jaws dropped. And I love seeing some stuff that I haven't seen in decades, seeing stuff that I never thought I'd ever see, occasionally see things that I didn't even know existed, which I spend so much of my life is diving in books and looking at, what's being found online and reading papers. It's surprising when I see something like that. And so I love it. I think things are going great direction. And I think that those out there who have collections that they love, stay passionate, stick to it, keep doing it, treat people right, and start looking at what world we're leaving for the next generation. Because just like I said, field work informs keeping informs field work, but the work we do in our deli cups to the next generation builds the army of conservationists that are going to save what we can of the natural world. And if we don't hand that off in such a way that it's we're handing it off with passion, with positivity, optimism for the future, we're damning the future of nature in every way. That we can't legislate a future for the wild. We've got to build a passion and build a love for it in the children that are coming up. And so we have to do that. And Zac, I'll tell you, I got to say this one last thing is I also listened to you guys' interview with Tyler Suiso, and I met Tyler at IHS in Tennessee, and we took the van out and found my first Tennessee corn snake. And that was a really cool experience. It's also how I met Roy that turned into that. And I met Nick Vine and ended up inviting him to the 50th birthday party of me and Justin Gelander in Australia. And IHS, again, like you say, just an incredible experience. And you end up rubbing shoulders and meeting like-minded people that you didn't even know existed. Meet some of those giants whose shoulders we stand on, especially with this being the 50th anniversary. I don't care that there's no hotels within 200 miles or you're going to be sleeping in a dumpster. Whatever it takes to get there, get there. It's just going to be an amazing experience. The library there, that you're there in the valley between the Pelancios and the Chiricahuas, the anthropologic history of that area, the biology of that area, everything about that area is amazing. And then we're going to have this IHS presentation. To your point, it's going to be hard to sit there and listen to it. As amazing as the talks are going to be, knowing that you've got Obscurus, which is my white whale in the mountains, watching me from the horizon. But yeah, we just get out there, just do it and give to the next generation. Find those people who need a nudge in the right direction. Realize that we're all in different places, be more inclusive of people, and and help them, because we're, like I say, we're on this transition from A to B. We're on different parts of that trip, but we can help people maybe sidestep accidentally killing a garter snake as they're keeping these young kids with their first snake that they keep, teach them how to do it right and help them sidestep that, but infuse the passion in it that comes from making some of those mistakes as you go along, and teach them that the stove's hot without having them touch it. I just feel like, and it's me being the old guy getting older, I'm really transitioning from the get off my lawn to, hey, what can I do to help you get past the things that were tough and get to the part that's enjoyable, and help you see that nothing's disconnected. Your passion for the wild is going to infuse your life with so much joy and contentment, and is going to help you find your center and find out who you are. And yeah, everything's connected. Get out there, find a snake.
There you go. Perfect way to end it.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, if people want to see your photographs or talk to you about a Baird's rat snake or a blackhead, how do you recommend? There's a little bit of a monetary gap between those two things, but
yes.
But how do they reach out to you?
Not much of a gap now that there's the anarthristic Baird's out there.
True.
But hey, Perrett Reptiles on Instagram for those herpers I run into out in the wild and want to know what my Instagram is, as well as on Facebook. That's probably the best way to reach me for that stuff. I'm going to start putting more stuff up on faunatography, but that's more of my wildlife photography. That's less reptile stuff. I've got a penchant for finding invertebrates, and am in love with the spiders of Australia as well as the American Southwest. And so rather than keep flooding those images to my reptile friends, I'm going to start putting more of that stuff up on a different channel. So faunatography, if you like all the creepy crawlies, Perrett reptiles, if you just like the reptiles, and please reach out if you have any questions for me. I'm happy to help everybody get to wherever they want to get to in their journey of reptiles.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, Clint, where can people find you?
You can see everything that we have available on Metazotics.com. You can find me on Facebook, Clint Bartley. You can also find Metazotics on Facebook, Instagram, and it's going to be Metazotics or MetazoticsLLC.
All right. And for me, you can find me at Zac Loughman on Facebook, Dr. Crawdad on Instagram. I always forget to talk about this, and I'm glad I remembered. The Herp Lab has socials now. So if you want to keep tabs on what's going on in Iowa, what's going on with the spotted turtles, the box turtles, there's so many projects going on. I believe it's WLU, not West Liberty, and I'm certain a grad student's going to be like, what the hell, Loughman? But it's West Liberty, WLU, herpetology, and herpetoculture, because I made sure we had both those terms in our title. So if you look that up, you'll find that. Give it a like, follow it. I'm certain you will enjoy seeing the antics, and that is the correct term, of my students out in the field. Today I got texted in the middle of a meeting. My student Colton is like holding the snapping turtle up. He's in knee-deep muck, and it's just got its head out, and it's so close to his face. I was like, okay, good times. I was like, please don't lose your nose. So anyway, that's the thing. Give that a look. And obviously, if you're interested in working with these animals in college, always consider West Liberty University, because we have a lot of them, and there are a lot of students hanging out for the summer. I think we have 10 to 12 that aren't going anywhere. They just stayed to hang with all the creatures. And so pretty cool stuff. But yeah, be it afternoon, morning, evening, or night, whatever time of day it is, have a good one. And we will see you on the next episode of Colubrid and Colubrid.